Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 211. In this game I was playing against, let's put his name up here, Darzian. Yeah, Darzian. Anyway, I want to give him some props. We played a second game after this one, and he defeated me. Played a pretty good game. I was under a lot of pressure, and I blundered, and he won. So he got some rating points back after this game. So I just wanted to give him some props. Played a couple of good games. This was a well-played game, too, till we got into time trouble at the end. Okay, the game itself had kind of a funny start. I played d4, and my opponent played d6. Not the most popular choice, but a way to get a different kind of position from the usual knight f6 or d5 or e6, so fourth choice. And now my move here should probably be e4, just claiming more space in the center, or knight f3, putting pressure on the e5 point. Both logical moves, but c4 is a way to stay in normal queen's pawn opening territory. And if my opponent had played, let's go up here, my opponent had played, yeah, I guess knight f6 or e5, we'd have a more typical kind of queen's pawn opening. But instead he played the move e6, and after I played knight c3, we're just out of the opening book altogether. Now, it's a little unclear what to call this opening, since it's so unusual, a particular move order. One source I had called this an Old Indian, the idea that when the bishop comes here and the knight comes here to f6, so bishop e7 and knight f6, that's a setup of the Old Indian, as opposed to the King's Indian, where a knight is on f6, but the bishop goes to g6. And I've usually seen the Old Indian with the move e5 rather than e6, but I suppose there's another. You could consider this a variation of the Old Indian. I played knight c3 here. Oh, but what I wanted to say about that, even though that's what it's called at this point, if you play on a few moves, you'll see that we actually end up in a Sicilian. So you might think, oh, this is kind of crazy. I called this move, this game, the title of the game was Sicilian Maroczy bind. And I start out with the move d6, d4 and d6. You might wonder, how the heck can you get to a Sicilian from those moves? Well, watch and find out. So he plays bishop e7, like I said, going into this Old Indian setup, bishop e7, knight f6. And I just put my pawns in the center, which is a pretty normal response. Develop my pieces, knight f3, he castles. Place my bishop to d3. He plays c5, and now you maybe are seeing some similarities to a Sicilian, because c5 is a classical move in the Sicilian. I play h3 to keep his knight out of g4 and to allow me to play the move bishop to e3 without it being harassed. Then he takes the pawn. I take back with my knight, and there you go. This is now a Sicilian, and it's a Maroczy bind because I have pawns on e4 and c4. And we've got the typical open Sicilian where the C pawn has been traded for the D pawn. So that's why I called it a Maroczy bind Sicilian, because this position could have arose from that opening. Just came about by a different move order, but it's a better description of what this is. Although I have a description here at the bottom of my screen calling it English opening floor Mechanis system. Which would be c4, knight f6, starting with moves c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, e4. So that's another way to get to this position, I guess. But when I look at this, it says to me Sicilian, so that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, now I have this slight opening edge, typical kind of opening advantage here, and I keep this for a while. So I'm both playing good, reasonable moves here. Knight c6, bishop e3, just developing. Getting your pieces on good squares, and now e5. And now I have to make a decision. Maybe knight f3 is the best, but I decided to go ahead and take. This also leaves white with some advantage, and white has the idea of going after the weak pawn on d6 later, and black maybe will try to solve this by pushing on to d5. So interesting play for both sides, still a slight opening edge for white. Castles. Bishop e6 and b3, just defending the c4 pawn, which was under attack. Knight d7. I thought knight d7 was preparing the move f4, but maybe not. f5, rather. So in this position, I had a choice of different moves, and the move I played was f4. And so this is actually the first real mistake of the game. And it's not a huge blunder, it's just a small mistake. But it kind of shifts the game from being in white's favor to being in black's favor, so kind of a noticeable shift. If I just played queen d2, which is what I was thinking of, it turns out that f4, which I thought was his plan, he moves the knight out of the way to play f5 rather. It turns out f5 is just not a good move here. So watch this. f5, I take, he takes, and then I can trade and play knight e4. And look at this. This is just a great position for my knight. I'm putting pressure on d6, which was part of my plan, and it looks like that's adequately defended for the moment, but I've at least stopped him from playing the move d5, and I can bring more pressure on the d6 point by bringing my rook over. And so it seems like a good position for white, and it's easy to believe that white has an advantage, although I'm surprised to see it that large. So, so one point about this position is there is no need for me to be afraid of the move f4, which is what I was kind of reacting to. And I could just go on with my plans of queen d2, just a natural developing move, getting the queen off the back rank, supporting the bishop in case it wants to come out to g5 at some point. Not, I guess it's not possible now, but maybe at some point, and connecting the rooks. So that would have been a good move. f4, the move I played, is just not as good. And what's funny is that even though it's similar to the previous line in that the position opens up a bit, and I get some additional pressure against e6, it's black that gets the good post for his knight. And now the advantage, you see, instead of being an advantage in favor of white, is an advantage in favor of black. So the way I opened it up was to black's favor rather than to my favor. So if we back up to this position where I have to make the decision about playing the move f4 or not, it's just interesting that in this position I should be able to calculate well enough to see that if I play f4 and he takes, he gets a good square for his knight. Whereas if he plays f5 and I take, then I get a good square for my knight. So the opening favors the side that is not doing the opening. So if black opens a position, it favors white, and if white opens a position, it favors black, which is not, I would say that's not typically the case. Usually white will, now of course people choose to open the move, open the position when they think it's in their favor, but anyway, the point is when you're playing one of these moves, you should do your best to try and calculate who the opening favors. If it favors you, you should play it. And if it favors your opponent, then you should find other moves. So that's why queen d2 is a good move in this position. Okay, so enough on that. That was just one really kind of interesting point, I thought, positionally. So f4, he takes, I take, and then he plays knight e5. And black has the edge now, and he keeps it, although it goes back and forth between slight edge to black to being about even as we just do our normal developments. So bishop c2, I decided to keep the bishop, get it away from the knight. I could have just moved the queen too, but this is okay. Queen c7, I play queen e2. Just trying to get off the d file so I can bring a rook over. He goes bishop f6, good position, good move for the bishop, and introducing some threats along the long diagonal. So now I have to worry about the move knight takes c4 here. Knight takes c4. I can't take back with a queen because the bishop is on it, so I have to take with a pawn, and then bishop takes knight because this knight is loose on c3. So this is a threat I have to deal with. And I found one way. It looks like queen e3 would have defended the knight. I played the move rook a d1, which the engine likes as well. This is a counterattacking move. So now if he plays this tactic to win a pawn on c4, I can win the pawn on d6. So it might go like this. Knight takes. I take the knight. He takes my knight. And then I can take here. And not only am I getting my pawn back, but I'm also forking his queen and his rook. So this would definitely work to my advantage. So I don't have to worry about that tactic anymore when my rook is on d1. So that's why that move works. Rook f to e8, just defending his bishop and ignoring these tactical ideas. And queen e3, getting out of the way so I can maneuver the knight around. rook a d8, defending the weak d-pawn, and now I do this knight maneuver. And you see it's still nearly even to slightly in favor of black. So we're both playing, I think, pretty high-quality chess here. He decides to exchange bishops, and he gets his knight to this square on e5 once again, and I play my knight to f4. So we both got something out of this. And he played the move f6 here. The engine also likes bishop takes f5, but f6 is a good move as well. I thought maybe it was a weakening move, but I don't have my piece is in position to take advantage of this. I need to move those pawns out of the way so my bishop can come over here and get onto this diagonal. And it's just not happening anytime soon. Black will have time to deal with that. So this f6 move is not bad, and it defended the knight against tactics like taking on e6 and leaving the knight undefended. Okay, so I play rook f2, hoping to double on the d file. He decides to take the take the knight at this point on f5, and I took back with the pawn. Looks like taking with the rook would have been good as well. And he plays rook e7. So he's going to defend the pawn. I'm going to double and attack it, and he doubles his rooks and defends it. And still in that range of even to slightly better for black. So we're still, again, we're continuing to play good moves here. I went rook d4, so maybe this is not the best move. Queen c3 is an interesting way to play. Just come over here. Bishop to e4 is an idea. Okay, I went rook d4. I have the idea of advancing these pawns. I want to set it up by playing b4 first, and I couldn't play that without losing the c-pawn. So rook d4 has the idea of defending the c-pawn. Still in the same range. So he played d5. And I took. And now here is the second mistake that I make. He takes, and this is good. Again, it's about even with the best play. And what I should play here is queen f2. So the thing about queen f2 is it just defends my rook. Right now my rook is hanging, and I have to do something about it. And my solution was to take. But let's stop and consider what happens when I take. There's actually a transformation of the position, which is pretty significant, and that's this pawn here is not a passed pawn yet. It's isolated, and it's held back by my pawn here, which guards the square c4. So instead of being a passed pawn, it's an isolated, weak pawn that can be attacked from the front. So I should really just try and keep that pawn. Instead, I trade. And I have to play my queen somewhere to defend the bishop. So these were all pretty reasonable moves after deciding to trade. But look at what's happened to this pawn. Now this pawn is a passed pawn. So I've created a potential monster for my opponent here. And he's got a clear plan, and I don't have any easy way to stop it. And so now there's a significant edge to black here. So really that was a second kind of positional mistake. And pretty easy to see. It's just one of those things you have to think about. You say, okay, trading is going to convert this pawn into a passed pawn. I don't want to do that, so I should defend here instead of trading. Okay, but I didn't think of that during the game. And here, the play continues with the slight edge for black. It's still, it got a lot of squares to go through before it gets to d8 here, but definitely black is the one with the advantage, and he's got a clear winning plan, which really helps your play sometimes. So I moved my king out of check. He just played queen b6 check. I go queen to he went queen to b5 here. So maybe not the best. What is the engine like there? The engine likes d4, just pushing ahead right away with the pawn. Okay, so he's trying to set up that pawn push, but I guess already he could have played it. Well, let's back up. That's an interesting thing. Why is d4 a safe move here? Back up, I said. Why is it safe? Can't I just take? Oh no, it's defended by his queen. That's why you want to play d4 while your queen is still on b6 there. Okay, he played queen b5. I went b4 here, which is a good move, opening up finally that square for my bishop so it can play a more active role in the game. I'm in danger of having a position where I have a bad bishop against a good knight. This knight is already quite good, so I just need to make sure my bishop doesn't become too bad. And he's got a centralized king, which is going to be an advantage later when the queens come off. But so far so good. It's still even, and I need to avoid trading queens. Here's another important point. If I trade queens, he takes. He's hitting the pawn on a3, so I have to defend it. And now it's his move. Let's see, king e5, just continuing to come forward and attacking my pawn. I mean, this is an endgame where black's king position is just vastly superior to mine. My king is way over here on the rim, and he's got a passed pawn. So I think this is just a winning endgame for black. So definitely something to be avoided at all costs. So I recognize that much. I played queen c1, and he went knight to c4. And now knight c4 opened up this line on his king, so I could play this check, and he could go back. And now my best move is just to repeat, play the queen back to c1, or to do nothing, play the king to h1. Instead, I went. So here's one thing I was mistaken about. I thought queen c1, he could take the pawn, but this is not good because I come in here with check. And now this pawn is dropping, and my bishop is active, and his king is in a lot of danger. So that would not be good. So I didn't need to worry so much about defending this pawn as long as I can generate counter threats on c5. So I played queen f2 trying to defend that pawn, but really unnecessary. Now he can push ahead, and now his advantage starts to show through. Continuing to push the pawn, and giving me a check. And right here, yeah, this is the point in the game where black could have really won the game. So up until now, there was advantage to one side or the other, but not enough maybe to be decisive. But here, both knight c6 and queen f2. So they have kind of the same idea. Queen f2 here creates a threat of knight to f3 check. And that will drive my king back, and then it'll be checkmate with the queen on g1. So there's a mate in 2 threatened here. I have to do something about that, and it looks like the only move is king h1, so I can at least take the knight if it comes in there. And then he can push on with the d pawn, and let's see, bishop b3 back to stop the pawn from becoming a queen, and then now knight c6. And I think the idea here is similar to if black had played knight c6 first. It's just maneuvering the knight to where it can help promote this pawn, or to take some of my pawns. And my pieces are sort of completely helpless and tied down. If the queen, for example, moves to c2, he can grab the b4 pawn. The bishop has to guard this queening square, and there's always this threat of queen to e1 check, and helping this pawn promote at the right time. So this has to be played very carefully, and black definitely has a winning edge here with just maneuvering the knight around, because I really can't move my pieces. So let's go back to the game. He didn't play queen f2. He played d2 immediately, and I don't know if he noticed, if he just forgot his queen was hanging, but he does get a queen back. It just turns out that this overlooks a checkmate, which I didn't play in the game. But if we back up, I'm guessing, well, he was low on time, so it could be he just played this pawn move, forgetting that his queen wasn't defended there. Or maybe he thought the trade of queens and getting a queen back would be good enough, but obviously it's not. Now, I didn't see the checkmate there. This definitely is something I should have played. Typical pattern with the queen covering all of these squares. Let's erase that line and put this line in, and then this bishop is covering these squares, while the pawn and the bishop are covering these squares. So the king is caught in that mating web, spider web there. So I was low on time too. I grabbed the pawn here, which is also quite strong. You see the evaluation is 2.5 points in favor of white, so definitely a winning edge here because of all the threats of the queen and the bishop around the king. This is a really good piece now. What had been a bad bishop has become a good bishop finally. So he played knight c6, which is the final mistake. I go queen d7, check, and of course wherever he goes, I'm picking up the queen, so he resigned at this point. So anyway, I thought that was a really interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave any comments you have in the section below. I'll see you again soon. Bye.